so it's 9 a.m. So let's get the meeting started. I call the meeting to order. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hey, do I have the approval of the Tuesday, January 18th minutes?
I have a quick correction. I was typing these too quickly. And on page 3, right before item C, I accidentally left a timestamp in the middle of the minutes from when I was writing those. So I would like to strike those from the minutes.
Okay, do I have
I
a motion?
move to strike those the additional timestamp that Kelsey was referring to.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that. This is Doug.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments or additions or anything? No? Okay, we move on to public comment.
Can Amber hear us?
She's muted.
Oh, okay. Very good. I didn't hear you vote, so sorry, Amber.
No, thank you. All right, we can move to public comment.
And we did not have any requests to speak today.
Who's on the line?
Jan.
Jan Siebert-Warman is joining us this morning to listen in.
Good morning, Jan.
Morning, Jan.
Okay, we'll move on to utility relief. Okay. Carmen Schwager is the first one. Lawsuit 14, Kennedy Beach, Oregon. Any questions, any comments? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
This is Doug. I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. The next one is Carmen Schwager.
Well, that was combined with the first one, so it was all, she unfortunately had 2 leaks all in the same time period, so there's no way to differentiate water
one it was.
usage, which one was which, so it's all lumped into that first leak number 1.
Thank you. Okay, Ray Linda Bud. Any questions, any comments? Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to approve that one as well.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so now we have the RV resort. The RV resort sign.
Yeah, I believe it's their meter and then that service line that goes through their front yard before it enters the building. That was Daryl's description.
Okay, do I have
So-
any questions?
I have a question. It looks like the city fixed that, is that correct? So was that on the city's line then? Or before or after the meter, I guess?
On our side of the property anyway,
It looks like it would.
but we are the owner of the property as well, so that one's a little tricky.
Yes.
Okay.
right.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay. I move to approve that one as well.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
Favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we have our items for discussion, public works status.
You guys saw the letter that Bruce sent out. It was our official letter saying we got the loan for phase 2 of our water resiliency. So now next steps on that is they will send us a fully executed contract, which means the money is available for us to draw down when we start the project. But before we can touch any of the money, we have to get the RFP ready to put that out to bid. And the process for that would be the design and engineering aspect of it first. And then probably whoever wins that bid would be asked to put it out to bid for us. They would handle the RFP and everything for the construction aspect of it. So that'll be a bit of a 2-phase process. Kelsey this week is working on the RFP for the seismic valves and all the piping and valving associated with that. That has to go to Business Oregon for review before we can actually put it out to public bid. So Kelsey's objective is to get that to Business Oregon by Friday. They have 10 days officially to turn it around, but we've asked Becky if she could consider expediting that for us, that we want to get it out to bid as soon as possible. And she's agreed to do that. So we're hoping that maybe within 5 days, she could have it turned back around to us. It's a very large, thick document. RFPs are much more complex nowadays than they have been in years past for the city. And so it takes quite some time to get through all the legalese, especially for these low interest loans. They require some things on the RFP that weren't traditional for the city. So they're just much more complex RFPs. It takes time to put them together. But anytime we get these low interest loans, those RFPs have to go back to the originating party that gave us the money for review before they can go out. So like I say, there's usually a 10-day lag time. She's going to do it faster. Once we get that out to bid, it'll be the similar process as the other one. They will design and engineer it first, then put it out for construction bid. And whoever wins that bid will oversee that project and whatnot. Okay. Haystack Pump Station is done. We have 2 or 3 items on the final punch list that we're holding the contractor accountable for. It's minor stuff. An example is that they were not able to run the sprinkler system to make sure that when they were working that area and they tore up all the grass, that they didn't damage any of the sprinklers. But the homeowner winterized the sprinklers for the winter, and he doesn't really want to turn them on so the contractor can see if everything's working fine. So we just agreed that we would leave it as is. And in the spring, when they start irrigating their grass again, if they find they've got some sprinkler head damage, they can give us a call and the contractor will be called back to deal with it. So it's very minor things, but it's still items outstanding that allows us to not close out the project officially. But again, nothing to worry about. They finished 7th and Oak up on the north side, as you guys probably saw. That turned out really nice. The neighbors in that area are very pleased. We are still in the process of trying to get all of our presidential outfalls permitted through the Oregon State Parks, where we have a call lined up with them. They've asked some questions about our permits that we sent in. So hopefully after that call, we'll either get an approval or they'll ask us to make some minor modifications and we can be done with those outfalls along the presidentials. So probably next month I'll be able to status you based on that call with them. Let's see what else. We're finishing up on Larch. We had a couple sewer repairs to be made before we can pave that street. Those are the last outstanding items we have to do on that street. So that's going well. The house that's being built on the corner, or houses that are being built on the corner of Viewpoint Terrace and Ross Lane. We're working with those 2 homeowners and the contractors to realign Viewpoint Terrace. They actually paved that street many years ago and about 5 feet of it is on private property. So now that those 2 homes are being built and they're no longer empty lots, the city's got to address that and they need to relinquish that property back to the owner. And so hopefully when we pave Larch, we can get Viewpoint Terrace and Ross realigned while we have our asphalt truck out. Warren Way intersection is going to start this month, probably on the 22nd. I have a call this week with the contractor that is handling that job for us. We bid that out and that contractor is handling everything. Big River won that bid. That is to put the 4-way stop at that intersection, take out all those little white temporary candlesticks and extend the landscaping down to put curbs and sidewalks and the legal ADA ramps that's required of us. And that'll be on the west side of the street. East side of the street doesn't really need to be changed, other than put a turn lane back where the Wayside Hotel is. So when you come off of the highway, we allow the cars to turn right and we don't run the risk of anything backing up onto the highway as a result of the 4-way stop. That should be done by Easter break. That's our goal. That's going to depend on the asphalt plant. And if they get opened in mid-March, then they can come and they can do the little bit of asphalt patching that's going to be required when all that's said and done. But other than that, that's not really a tough project. It's just the timing of it and the asphalt plant being able to open. Temperatures have got to be such that, they're rolling a truck of hot asphalt. It stays hot by the time it gets here and they're laying it down. And let's see, what else? Anything else?
You're going to see some activity at the Warren Way intersection starting tomorrow. Has nothing to do with the project, but the communication company is going to be boring some lines in for Moe's Restaurant there. And I wanted to get that done before we start the construction phase. So you're going to see some activity. That's in anticipation of a big overhead string they're going to be doing, the telecommunications. But they're starting at the Moe's at that intersection so they can get out of our way. Then we can start our project.
I don't know if you guys saw in the paper, but Pacific Wave was just awarded 25 million for a big, large project. So I think this is some of that residual activity that we'll probably see a lot more of as far as string and fiber. Or our desire is for them to do it aerial, so they're not tearing up our streets, especially on the S curves.
Yeah.
Trevor and I talked about it, and there's just no doubt about it.
They're going to go overhead from Warren Way all the way pretty much to Jackson starting next month. So you're going to see quite a bit of traffic and
For fiber optics for internet service and stuff?
I believe that's what it's for, correct?
Is it Google or do you know?
Is it Google?
Who
No, it's
is
a
it?
Pacific Wave.
Pacific Wave.
Pacific
Yeah.
Waves. They're a big operation. Like I say, it was just in the paper. They got 25 million awarded to them for projects associated with the new technology, so on and so
They
forth.
were gracious enough to start the project early to get out of that intersection and then let us have at it so they're not in our way or coming back and cutting up asphalt again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so far, they've been great to work with.
They've been really great to work with.
Professional,
Yeah.
kind of know what they're doing, so it's not.
And when you finish a project and the asphalt looks all nice and smooth,
Yeah.
the last thing you want.
I'm thankful that the
Utility corridor to come through.
That's why we kind of do a last call for alcohol.
Last call.
Get ready to pave a street. It's like, okay, if you want to dig, now's your time. Otherwise, you're out, I mean, I think our code says something about that's not to be disturbed for 2 to 3 years after a project. And so when contractors are, looking at building a house for someone, they typically call us ahead and say, we're going to need to run utilities to this lot. And I think it was it Jackson or Jefferson that we, it's right back here by the hotel that we paved. We went ahead and extended utilities to the last few lots that were on there. So we don't have to come back and cut it, So
You're gonna see some activity downtown starting tomorrow at the North End Pot Shop. They gotta connect into our storm system, so they gotta shut off a section, not shut down the road, but some parking spots in order to dig a trench to connect to us. So you're gonna see some activity. Business owners have been contacted personally by me, so I think we're good to go there, but you are gonna see some activity there tomorrow. So.
Right on.
Thank you.
and other than that, we're just busy getting our budget set up for next year. So we're just in the first couple of phases of what we've got to get to Lori. She gives us a calendar every year and tells us which phases of our budget is due to her. And so we're working through that right now. So it's going to be all about the budget for the next couple of months. So if there's anything you guys feel like we haven't put our eye on that we need to next year, let me know as soon as you can. Let's talk about that, okay?
And when is the four-way going to get started on Second and Hemlock?
That's still in the design stages. So nothing's been finalized in that. It's got to be presented to council and everything else. That's just an option. So.
Yeah, that's all part of the TSP project. And so until Jeff really kind of puts together, and the committee that's looked at all that really puts together what the recommendation is for council, Public Works won't be pulling the trigger on any of that.
Okay, I apologize. I thought it might be a little farther.
No, it's okay. That's it. And that's pretty much our update for this month.
Right on. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
Doug, Amber, do you guys have any questions? Do you have any questions about the budget process for Karen or anything like this?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks, Janae. I don't have any questions at this time. I guess I would like to see, like, once the budget is kind of pulled together, I think it'd be great for the committee to take a look at it and just have eyes on it.
Yep, definitely. And you guys remember, these budget meetings are public. And so you guys can dial in and listen. There's an agenda that is issued, so you'll see when Public Works goes forth. And the council and budget committee are all in the room with us when we go through everything. So you guys are welcome to sit in and listen to that.
Right. But that's not a good time for anyone to ask any questions, like if they're looking at the budget and they want questions, because that's kind of like just information only, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so Karen will get us a list of that so we can look at it. Thank you, Karen. All right, let's move on to utility relief request form and ordinance update. So let's see, we have the information that Karen gave us here.
Yeah, are we on the,
Yeah, the utility relief.
yeah, so what Kelsey needed for us to be able to put together a draft ordinance for you guys is to go back over that list of items. She just wanted to talk through those so that she was comfortable with where you guys ended up on each of those before we start drafting an ordinance for you guys to review. So Kelsey, why don't you walk them through the items?
So basically, I just included a list that kind of summarized what I think I heard you guys say as far as each aspect of the policy that you were hoping to include for the water relief. And so I just kind of put it down as bullet points. And if any of these look wrong, if you guys decided on something different than this and I just misheard you, now's the time to kind of correct that before we actually start dropping all this policy into limits language.
Okay.
And then I also made a note that we should probably, and I think you guys touched on this, align the old sewer relief request policy with this new water policy so that they match as far as, you know, proof of repair, a cap on amount, frequency, how often you can submit for, just so both of those policies pretty much are parallel, and it's a lot easier for the public to understand both of those because they kind of follow the same format.
That makes total sense. Done, Amber?
Yeah, I read it over and I think it looks, I mean, Kelsey, this is like super easy to read like this. So thank you.
Yeah, this is Doug. I don't have it in front of me, but I reviewed it yesterday, I think, and the bulletized points there, I think I think the committee would agree. I hope that it pretty well captured where we are and what we agreed to. Was that pretty much the consensus?
Yes.
Okay, so, you know, with that, I didn't want to play lawyer too much, or really anyway, but I'm looking at implementation here, and just generally speaking, obviously, we'll eventually need to tweak our actual form to reflect the change, right?
Right.
Right. And I think there's an ordinance that addresses the actual relief requests, but I think we've got to be certain that we don't overlook the powers and duties ordinance, where it talks about our powers and duties as a committee, which would be 2.34.020. Right now, G on that, paragraph G on that ordinance talks about how we look at excess sewer charges not flowing into the waste treatment system. So that'll need to be tweaked a little bit in my mind. And then maybe a whole other paragraph that, and you know, I just threw this out. The committee shall evaluate claims for excess water charges resulting from accidental unintended leaks under policies developed by the committee and approved by the council. I mean, I think we might need to tweak the existing one and add a paragraph like that to our powers and duties ordinance. So I'm sure you guys probably thought about that. It's really a job for staff, but I just want to make sure we dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and also come up with a form, which is really the document that interfaces with the public that is clear. And ours isn't bad right now, but I think I think we can take some time to make it even better once we add the water relief portion to it.
And that's what Kelsey's working on. Thank you, Kelsey.
Okay, that sounds great.
So, perfect. Anything else, anyone?
On the first bullet, I'm not quite clear. Must be eye and water registered user to be eligible for relief. And then the second indented bullet says, no, anyone is eligible to request relief. So which one of those is
Yeah,
correct?
the bullet point,
The
further out
dark
bullet
one?
point, the not indented one, the first line, that was just kind of taken off of your guys' topics for discussion. So that was how you guys had it phrased on there, must be eye and water. I thought you guys had decided that anyone could apply, that you did not have to be an eye and water user, but
Okay.
that if someone did apply and they weren't a user, we could strongly walk them through that and encourage that tool. But if I got that wrong,
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that. I think maybe, should we encourage or should we require them if they're going to receive some kind of benefit from a leak request to be an eye on water user? And I know we have some concerns about folks that aren't tech savvy.
Yep.
That may not be doing that.
But the main thing is those encouraging the customer to get on eye and water.
Okay, so we just want to continue to encourage and not require
opportunity to-
part of the benefit
I
that they
think legally
receive.
we may not be able to required.
Okay.
So we need to look into that, but I don't think that legally we would be able to require for them to do that, just because
Okay.
there's a lot of.
How about if we were to say when
Hear that.
someone submits for a leak request, if they're not already an ion water user, they will be asked to sign up.
And we can help them and.
We can't require them, for just exactly, but there needs to be a expectation set that this tool's available to them and that if they're able, they should be using it.
This will be a great time, teaching time and,
Yeah.
showing them if they don't have a computer, maybe show them to go to the library or, one of us may have to step up and say, hey, we'll walk you to the library and we'll show you how to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And
This is-
Daryl's been-
Go ahead.
I was just going to mention, it looks like Daryl's been great with telling everybody that has got a leak and following up on those. I noticed he's really been busy doing that. Go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just going to say, I concur that is where we ended up. We did discuss making it a prerequisite to actually getting relief, and then we came off of that. So I believe we decided that anyone would be eligible for relief regardless of whether they were an ion water user or not. But city staff would use that opportunity when they came in for that request to educate, cajole, and encourage them to sign up for ion water, because actually, I will be interested to see how that works, because to me, the average person, if they come in for a leak request and they know that they're going to be limited as to when they can come in again, the customer could be educated. Hey, we have this great tool where really, at least the magnitude of what you're looking at in this particular leak, maybe it's not going to happen again. There's a tool to prevent that. And so I think that's exactly where we ended up.
Okay,
I
thank you.
think at a minimum, you could consider making it a requirement for businesses. And again, I don't think there's any legal
No, I
we
think
could do,
businesses would be.
but we should set an expectation, especially for businesses, because there are high users. And they typically irrigate their properties. They have the ice machines that run almost 24/7. And so they're probably the ones that are at the greatest risk of leaks. But again, just to say that they're required is a stretch, because we won't have anything for leverage on that. But we should say that businesses are expected to be signed up. There's no reason why they can't.
Right.
I mean, the internet is their everyday world. And we can understand why individual users might not, but a business, I mean, it's good stewardship, as far as I'm concerned, but we can set that expectation, but if they don't, there's really nothing we can do about it.
Right, and that's the
Agreed.
problem, that if we required on businesses, if they don't do it, what do we do? Just
Yeah, exactly.
not give them the relief if they have one.
Yeah.
Well, that's a slippery slope, like Doug was
I know.
saying, you know.
I think the only thing
Of the-
we can do is that if there's another leak request that comes through, they're not eligible. I mean, it's that, goes back to that whole thing of us talking about how many is issued every single year by the same customer. And so there'd be some level of expectation there, but I think you guys have hit it by saying no more than every 36 months, right?
Yeah,
And so
I
we'll
kind
have to
of,
just see how that goes, kind of compare it. I mean, Daryl has this data from years back. We can go into the system and see. It'd be nice to be able to get our leaks down to a point where you don't really see any more than one a year for the average customer. I mean, between this tool, our leak detection efforts that we do every other year, you would think that with those abilities that number would really shrink, you know?
yeah,
And I think that really the only repeats that we see is businesses or someone that has an irrigation line issue and that it becomes problematic. But as an individual, those are fewer than we see on the businesses. So I think this is a good starting point, and then we can look at tweaking that as time goes on.
Amber, you have a question for us? For
No,
Karen?
I was just going to say that I feel like we spent a significant amount of time on this language, and just like Doug said, we arrived at everyone because it wasn't enforceable. And so it just seems like we made it the simplest and the most elegant wording, and we should just leave it at that. And I appreciate the need for clarification, but I feel like we've spent so much time on this.
Thank you,
Okay.
yes.
one thing we haven't clarified is the adjustment leak request limit of $1,000.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Mhm.
I think that's probably the only hanging chad out there on this. I agree, Amber. Looking at it, I don't know. I thought about average or mean, you know, just throwing out maybe the top and the bottom and coming up with a mean, because it seems like $85 is pretty small and almost 10,000 is pretty big.
Mhm.
So that mean would put it at somewhere at 5. But I think that's a little too high. And I kind of think 1,000 is a little too low, especially when we're dealing with businesses that may be heavily impacted by a large water bill due to a leak on one of their systems. And in discussions last time, we decided that it really doesn't cost the city very much with this water that's not going through the treatment plant. So what does it really cost the city to give $1,000 or $2,000 relief, something like that? Maybe 10 or 20 bucks, or am I out of line there? Or, I mean,
I don't really know.
yeah, it seems like it was pretty minuscule, but it really would benefit the small business instead of having to pay something like, $2,000 in leak water that wasn't used. So I'm thinking 1,000 maybe is a little low, but 5,000 is too high. I don't know. Maybe I would propose 2,000 or 2,500, something like that, for a limit for 36 months.
Do you want to set a different amount based on business or residents?
Well, this is Doug. Let me interject here because something that Steve said caused me pause. If we go forth with this policy, my understanding is that water leaks and requests for adjustments will be eligible even if they do go in to the sewage system. Otherwise, we're not really doing anything different. Am I missing something there?
Well, you'd be changing it from what it stands today because they're not, unless it goes through the system.
Right.
So are we
Right.
changing our position on that?
Well, I guess we need to discuss it. That was my impression, because if we're still going to deny anything that goes into the sewer system, then we already give leak relief if it doesn't go in, right? So there wouldn't be any change if we kept that same policy. There'd be nothing to change other than limiting even further what people have the ability to request if we make it, limited by time, limited by amount. I thought we were expanding the eligibility sort of more comprehensively for leaks on people's, property, to not be limited to just those that don't go into the sewer system. Otherwise, we're not really doing anything except making it even more narrow for eligibility. So maybe I missed something there.
That's what I thought you were doing.
Okay.
I didn't think we were changing.
Obviously, I wasn't clear on that. I thought we were still going to only give relief to the ones that didn't hit the sewer system because that was their main line into the house and that. So.
Well, then we're actually restricting eligibility, then expanding it.
Correct.
Right.
And that's what I thought we were doing is kind of
The
restrict.
idea was to tighten the
That's-
expectation because we made a capital investment to give them what they need to monitor it. I didn't get the impression we were making it more lenient.
Well, okay. Well, that was sort of the purpose of all my research, is to show that other jurisdictions don't limit water relief generally for just those that don't go into the sewer system, but they do have limitations on time and amount. So I guess I had a fundamental misunderstanding where we were going with it, because now if we're still going to keep the policy that it can't be a leak that went into the sewer system, and now we're going to limit you in addition to money and time and other criteria, we've actually made it more restrictive. I thought we were going to go the other way. Now, that's okay, but that's
So Doug, my understanding was your understanding and your understanding. So Amber, what was your understanding?
Mine was the same as yours and Doug's.
okay.
So we have, I wonder what Scott's
Okay.
understanding was.
Well, the reason I thought we were going to be more restrictive is because of the eye on water and the
Yeah,
the common homeowner and business owner would be able to see if they have a leak. So they really wouldn't need to have additional relief avenues because they have this other tool. So
correct. There's no reason for us to be tightened or doing anything if we weren't just looking at that. At least that's my point.
Yeah, we spent a lot of actually months on this, and I'm a little bit surprised that we get to this point, and because the whole idea was that, as you could if we did leave the same way, a person could have $1,000 water bill, and if it doesn't, if it went into the sewer system, they get nothing, which is exactly what we do now. So it seems like we wouldn't be accomplishing anything other than make it even harder to get relief.
Well, it's harder, but they do have more means to know it faster and better. So that's the reason why I honestly thought we were doing it. I mean, there's no other reason why we were doing this. I mean, we have the, we have the app, we have all this information out there.
I will say Doug's point is well taken. I do get people often comparing us to other municipalities that don't have that restriction. And so point well taken if we're going to compare ourselves to other municipalities, but those other municipalities don't necessarily have a tool like this.
Again, do we have, yeah, exactly. That's one of the things too.
And so if you're going to put that back on the table, the city would stand to be giving a lot more credits than they do now, which is costing us, right? After we made this investment. So if you put that back on the table, I would think your amount of frequency should be tightened up.
Correct. And the amount, instead of 1,000.
And I think that's still subject to discussion. The parameters of both time and monetary, but I really thought we were expanding eligibility
And
here.
that may be why so many other municipalities we looked at only let them put one a year through, because they don't restrict the sewer aspect of it. There's got to be some
Right.
give and take there.
Right. Well, it could be 3 years like we have it now. It can be 5 years.
Yeah, there was one, 5 years?
Yeah.
One was like once.
Mm-hmm.
Once in their
Yeah.
life.
Yeah, they're all over the map, but, yeah,
Is
so,
that something you want to reconsider and tighten up your frequency or your dollar amount? Because by just keeping everything the same and putting sewer back on the table as an option for credit, to me is a little concerning.
Once it hits the sewer system, it's a different ballgame.
Yes,
It gets expensive at that
I
point.
agree.
Pump stations, treatment, everything else, dilution factor that affects our treatment process. So that's my take.
Yeah, and I think if an ROI can be calculated on the ion water investment, then, it really kind of blows that out of the water that we don't get any kind of return on our investment if we allow the leaks to
Yeah, absolutely.
be reimbursed for going into the treatment.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was looking for when we started this exercise is the return on the investment, that we encourage the users to get signed up for the system. And if we make all the criteria so lenient, there's no reason for them to get signed up, And so like you say, we can't require it,
Right.
but we can set a criteria that strongly encourages it.
see, I guess I missed the boat here because you're basically saying now that we have ion water, we would keep the same criteria, which would be no relief for the sewer. And because we have ion water, we would tighten even further the eligibility and amounts that people are eligible for leak requests. I just didn't think that's what we were doing, but.
Okay.
Well, we have time to reconsider.
I was gonna say.
You guys want to, sleep on it another meeting.
And then, when Scott comes back, revisit that, we can ask Scott what his thoughts were. But, so we have, right now, there's 2 and 2, so we need to figure out what Scott.
We can come back next month with a pros and cons list of leaving it the way it is or going the other route. But I would encourage you guys to consider, if you're going to put sewer back on it, that you tighten up some of your criteria. Because to me, we're not really achieving anything if we're putting sewer back on the table with this set of criteria.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, when you said it's 2 and 2, Janae, I think who's the 2 and 2?
Steve and I thought the same thing, so, and you and Amber were thinking the same thing, so.
Oh, okay, well, and so Janae, you've been through these meetings, so somehow we've managed to, or I've managed to miscommunicate or something. So, because now I'm thinking if you leave the sewer off, maybe we don't mean to do anything, because we already have a policy.
We have a policy, but we did agree to tighten the policy because we know we have other information. People can have better understanding or where their water leaks are going.
Okay.
How fast, and I thought that was.
Okay, so this is really important, and nobody's at fault here for sure, because it's just a matter of misunderstanding. Because one camp, which would be mine, and I guess Amber's, thought we were expanding eligibility under certain criteria so that people that had water that went into the sewer system would be able to get some relief. And then you got the other viewpoint that thought we were restricting the existing policy. And so I'm not going to fall on my sword on either one, but we obviously probably should get on the same page, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think this has been discussed before, whether or not we were going to continue to allow one or the other. I don't remember that being a topic of discussion. I think we all just kind of made assumptions and moved forward.
Right.
The assumption was that we would set an expectation for people to utilize this new tool the city's invested in. I don't think we ever talked specifically sewer or not.
Yeah.
It was setting an expectation that drove them to get signed up for ion water and actually monitor their usage, not only for water conservation. Don't forget that.
Right.
It's not just about leaks. It's about people being aware how much water they're using. It goes back to Jan's desire, is that people to think about when they've just got water running in their kitchen and they're doing something else while their water's running. It's that kind of a mindset. And so it's not just about leaks.
Well, right. But that's all we're talking about now is leaks. So, I mean, your point's well taken on conservation. I agree with that. Okay, well, I mean, see, remember we went back to the city of Hermiston and kind of used them as a semi-model because they had a similar program, and I don't think they made a distinction between sewer and water, so I thought that was our launching pad. But anyway, like I said, I'm flexible. I can kind of go either way. I guess we need to get on the same page on that.
Well, since we don't have Scott here, you want to just wait one more meeting? And let
Move to
Scott-
table, I move to table this so we can all get some thoughts and maybe make some notes about whether or not sewer should be included, the pros and cons to that, what we're trying to achieve, and then come back next month and have a discussion on it.
Yeah, I like that because we've never really talked about the pros and cons, of putting it back on the table or not. And so you guys will have some time to do that. And Scott will be here next month. And then you guys, I want you all to feel really good about it when we go forth to council, because I'm sure it's going to drive a lot of questions.
Exactly, yes.
And
Yeah.
so we don't want to look like we're coming to council asking to change an ordinance. It becomes more lenient
Right.
when we've spent a lot of money on a tool that makes it available to people to be more cognizant of their usage, you know?
Karen, I will say that the only problem that we have with that is that the leniency piece is like, we've gone round and round, but I think that we run into, it's a little bit sticky when, we have this new tool, but we have no enforcement. There's no, like on the backside, there's no enforcement at all that we can take. And that's a little bit hard. It's sort of like, that's where all of these efforts kind of, to me, just transfer right back out. Because
the enforcement becomes
Carrot.
you tighten your criteria of how often they could submit for relief. That's your enforcement. And so if they know they're only going to be able to put one of these through a year, they're going to be watching
Exactly.
and they're going to react quickly,
Right. I'm not talking about that enforcement. I'm talking about enforcement about getting people to migrate over to ion water. I mean, we're not the only municipality or town that has sophisticated tools for power and water in our utilities. And I think that it's just kind of silly that we would think that we would, kind of allow people to continue in that vein. Like, we need to migrate that direction. We need everybody to migrate that direction.
I think what Doug brought us kind of reemphasizes what I just said. The few communities that have invested in this so far have tightened their criteria where they're only allowing people to submit very few leak requests. So they're driving the behavior by not allowing them to put multiple requests through every year. And so people are becoming more cognizant of their usage, more cognizant of any potential leaks. They react quicker to address them.
Yeah, the enforcement is a carrot, not a stick.
Right.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Right. I get that.
Because we really don't have a way to make them sign up for it, but the criteria can drive them towards
Exactly.
that.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna table it till next month.
Yes, we are table it for
Yeah,
next.
was there a second on the table or?
I don't think you need.
You don't need to.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Okay, so we can move on to 2022-23 projects and priorities.
So we updated you last month on what our priorities are. So my question to the committee, is there anything you guys feel we're not focusing on that you want us to focus on for next year? I outlined what our projects were going to be relative to our water resiliency, getting our loans and acting on those projects. So that's a given. The other one that I will have on the table for consideration for the budget committee is a water line replacement. When Carolyn was here, she was concerned that we were getting distracted with the seismic aspect of our resiliency and not focusing on the water lines that are outlined in the master plan. So to just reassure the committee and the community that we are still focused on that. The lines that are up in Haystack Heights, I talked last month about, I felt like, and this is probably a bad choice of words, getting our feet wet with that project. Because that system needs to be looped. We need to put some hydrants up there, and we're able to break that water line replacement down into 3 phases, 2 fairly simple end of block to end of block on one street and another one. And then the last phase was kind of the loop, if you will. And that's identified in the master plan. So it's, again, 2 birds with 1 stone, master plan project, and it's a water line replacement focused. So it's a good starting point. Again, with the town being full of tourists, that's an area we could work a little more easily, and it's not downtown. And we're going to have some lessons learned in that first water line replacement that will probably help us in the rest of the town when we start breaking that all down. So I put
That was
that
good.
on.
You know, actually, you read my mind, Karen. That was going to be my comment was, you know, how are we looking on the basic efforts, what I would call the overall health of the water distribution infrastructure, given its age and condition? Because you guys made so much progress on running down every single leak a couple of years ago, and it had such a drastic positive effect on, you know, water loss and reducing that. And I had the same concern that Carolyn did about, you know, running after this money, which is great, and making it more resilient for earthquakes and so forth, which is great, but hopefully not at the expense of maintaining and improving the health of the overall system. Because, you know, we talk about water loss and water conservation, the efforts that you made to find the leaks and fix them are great. But to me, the second phase of that is to continue to improve the health and viability of the system. So I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, thank you. I mean, Well Park kind of reminded us of what happens when a line that's almost 50 years old decides it's going to give way for whatever reason. You don't always know what causes it to fail, but when it does, you see the residual damage of what happened down there. So it's a costly fix. But I like the Haystack Heights thought for just exactly what I said. I think we'll have some lessons learned up there that probably we'd want to apply and think a little differently when we start getting down into town. The dynamics, a lot of these routes are vastly different from each other. So we're really going to have to kind of think about it as we approach each one of these. That's a great place to start. It kind of addresses the issue that we have up there, concern relative to being able to manage house fire if it were to catch, especially where it is very heavily wooded. So I'd like to start that area if you guys are good with that as water line replacement project.
Yeah, I think looping is a good idea too.
Good with that. And at that point, I think our place would really be full next year. I promise to not overdo it like I did this year with the team. I just about caved them all in. So I know how things pop up that we don't expect. So I promise to keep 2 or 3 capital projects on the list and still give us some room for some things that are unexpected that come up. Or if we were to have some shovel-ready projects and the feds were to give us money, we'd have the bandwidth to be able to move on it. So any other projects you guys feel like we should be focusing on that we haven't considered?
This is Doug. I have what I know is going to be a dumb question, but I'll ask it anyway. When I've been pulling into town the last few trips and making the curve there where the whale statue is, there seems to be quite a bit of work going on. I thought that we finished all that, the stairs and all that. Is that something new or what is that?
And we had the water line break, I don't know, how many months has it been now?
A week before Christmas, I think.
Yeah, it was just before the holidays.
Oh.
The water main blew right at Whale Park, and it blew out blew out our brand new stairs, and it blew out the asphalt on Hemlock. You can see when you make the corner there how the roads all failed. The water was literally coming up through the asphalt because there was so much pressure in the line. And so that's what I meant when I said when you have a line failure, it can cause a lot of residual damage that adds up to extra expense that is unfortunate. So that's what happened at Whale Park. Looks like a little bomb went off, and it felt like that when it happened.
It's too bad it blew out the new work. Gee whiz. Okay.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, so that's been repaired. Trevor's working with the concrete contractor to get that put back in place when temperatures are such that he can get out and pour some concrete. And then when our asphalt guys are out to do Larch, we'll make that patch on Hemlock there and get that repaired.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question just about, and I don't know whose kind of purview or area this falls under. I would think it's kind of public works, but maybe not, but about the elementary school. And do we, like, what's going on with the elementary school in terms of who's going to manage that project? Like, is that going to fall under Public Works or is that Parks and Community Services? Like, whose purview is actually owning that project?
I'll let Bruce answer that. He's in the room, and so I'll let him speak to that. That's his project.
Okay.
Morning, for the record,
Hi, Bruce.
Bruce St. Dennis City Manager. I never know where to look.
Wherever you want, yeah.
You've got options.
Up there, I look right at the, so I got it in my back, everybody. I will probably be the manager on that project. Rusty
Garrett?
Barrett. Well, Rusty Barrett was going to help me. Don't know if he will now, but he'll be helping with the day-to-day interaction with the architect and the construction manager. And but overall on the project, I will be the one that is representing the city. And I was the facility management director over 2 million square feet for 10 years and built projects up to $50 million. So, and also have built several projects using construction manager, general contractor, or CMGC. So I've been responsible for the project up until now. We're doing the financing, and I will continue to be with Rusty's help. And of course, I'll always be calling on Karen and Trevor to be the eyes in the field.
Who's going to be the ongoing though? Like, I mean, because I feel like there's several elements to that project. It's a pretty enormous project, not just from a construction management standpoint, but from a community engagement and a community coordination standpoint for that space. And so I guess that was kind of my question, was how the city was thinking about that strategically, not in terms of answering my question in terms of a who, but how are we thinking about it strategically and whose purview does it fall under? So what I just understood is that you're going to be managing the construction management or the project management of the construction portion. Is that correct?
Yes, but also I'll be working with the architect who will be doing the public input portion of this. And we invited the 4 firms that did propose. We will be interviewing all 4 firms. And a major part of their contract is the management of the public input. And what I told everybody at the mandatory pre-bid is that there will be a point when they will be in front of council and they will say, this is what we think we understand based on all the input we've received. And if they get it right, then we go on to schematic design. If they don't, they go back into the field. Everybody acknowledges, especially me, that the importance of the public input on this project and I think we've identified at least 10 or 12 major stakeholders, and they all have to be involved, and we have to sort this through in order to have a successful project. So the architect has the skill and will conduct the meetings and track all the information and do the reports. But the contracts, I'll be the contract administrator with the architect and the other project.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for answering, Bruce.
Just for clarification for the committee, this will not be the forum to get updates on the school going forward. I don't want to see us use our agenda time and our 1 hour to talk about the school. If you guys watch the council agendas, this is on the council agenda pretty regularly. And Bruce talks in detail during the work sessions about the status of the school, what phase we're in with the RFP, selecting the architect and the construction manager. So please take advantage of those work sessions to listen in on that so that we're not using our agenda, because this is not a public works project.
Thank you. And I think that's one of the questions. That was Amber's question.
That was my question, was whose purview does it fall under? Yeah.
Thank you, Amber. That's great. And thank you, Bruce, for giving us that.
Thank you for asking that. I just wanted to be clear going forward.
Yeah. Since I made the trip, I just mentioned one other thing that's kind of tied to this project. The Cannon Beach Elementary project. because we are going out for the bond issue on that, and so that project is going to pick up most of the cost of issuance of the bonds. That gave us an opportunity. We were contacted by our financial advisor saying that you have the opportunity to refinance the Ecola Creek Forest Reserve bond and the bond from the wastewater treatment plant. And those both have about 5 years on them. And the refinancing of those will result in a direct savings to taxpayers. So what'll happen is that it won't be, it's too late for this tax year, but in 2023, there will be a reduction in taxes through, I think it was 2028. Now, it's not a huge amount. It's probably $60 to $80 total over 5 years for every $100,000 in assessed value. So if you have, if it turns out to be on the low side of $60, and for a $700,000 home, that means over the 5 years, they'll save $420,000. I'm sorry, that would be great. $420. So the financing of Cannon Beach Elementary makes that refinancing possible, and we're not extending the time for payment.
That's great.
That's great. Yes, great news.
So
Great.
always looking for opportunities.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah,
Sure.
appreciate that.
All right, thanks.
Any other projects you guys want us to consider? Because that's all I've got on the board right now, relative to water. Wastewater is going to be dependent on our FEMA 4 generators that we've asked for. Last Tuesday's council work session, Bruce had to ask for an emergency request to use some of our contingency money because the temporary generator we have at the main pump station, because the primary generator has failed, also failed. So we found ourselves in a really bad position, and that happens to be the generator that we use at 2 other pump stations. So assuming that Pacific Power decided to do some sort of a power outage, we would have been running that generator from 3 different pump stations, would not have been in a good situation to be in, especially because Maine is our largest pump station and it pumps the most sewage to our plant. So it was not a good situation. So Cat Peterson came out the next morning. They got us temporarily running, but we have contacted a rental company to get a rental generator over here, which is quite costly. Until we can pull the trigger on a new one. They're trying to find one that's already built that we can get quicker, because every one of these generators are custom built. So Trevor's been working on that. So our focus in wastewater next year is going to be getting those generators from FEMA. If they don't give us the okay, and I contacted FEMA and told them that that application that they're sitting on, this generator is part of that. And I need to know is any kind of a window they can give me on when I can expect an answer. I mean, this is going on a year that we've had this application with them. And so he has asked FEMA, he being the folks in Salem that oversee all this, asked the folks at FEMA if they would put this on a priority list because of the situation we're in. We had the same thing at Matanuska where we couldn't wait for them to answer. So Bruce had to give us the approval to purchase the generator at Matanuska before they got the cover on it. And so I told him, I said, now this is generator number 2, that we're in a very bad situation. What kind of lenience do we have for you guys to make this a greater priority? So they couldn't give us a hard answer that it would or wouldn't, but he said, I've made that request to FEMA based on the situation that you're in. And he's given that to their department head in Salem. And so we're just crossing our fingers that we're going to hear something pretty quick. The goal here would be as soon as those generators arrive, assuming that we get them, that the 2 priorities would obviously be Maine. And then the other 2 priorities would be Ecola, and then extending the buildings at Midway and Siusla to get those generators inside and protected. They become permanent generators, and we're not rolling mobile generators to those pump stations. So that would be our focus for wastewater. That's one of our top priorities right now is to get those generators squared away. So any other thoughts on wastewater outside of that?
Doug, Amber? Any
No.
other, anything? Great. All right.
Good strides this year on wastewater with the Haystack pump station being done. And then our bid opening is next week for Matanuska. And so we'll find out who gets that bid awarded, and the cover will be put on Matanuska. So that's two main pump stations that we've really gotten major improvements on. So if we can get these 4 generators, we'll be in really good shape with our pump station. We come a long way in 3 years with the pump stations. So
It's very exciting.
kudos to Mike and the team.
Yes. All right. Do I have anything for good of the order, Steve?
Yeah, I've been approached and had some questions about the private citizens that are at the recycle center. So a couple of concerns have come up. One, are they interfering at all with any of the work that's being done there by the city employees? Number 2, is there a liability if one of them was to get injured going through any of the bins or retrieving any of the materials there? And then number 3, all the cans that aren't taken back to the grocery store or the deposit center and don't have a return on them, all that money goes into the recycle program and it may or may not benefit the city. I don't know how the city is funding their recycling facility, whether it gets kickbacks from the state or the program. But it looks like we're allowing them to take all the valuables out of there and that have already been collected and taken in for recycling, and taking those back out of that system, taking them over to a deposit center, and then reaping the benefits of people who are already recycling those. So, that dime, rather than going into the recycle program when it's already being recycled, is taken out and then given to a private pocket instead of into the recycling program. So it's late. I don't need any answers to that now, but those are a couple of concerns that have come up.
I will just say while we're on that topic, this question has come up before. Safety is always number one when it comes to our employees or any work area that we have. So the folks that come inside and they want to recover cans or whatever is no different than somebody lifting the tailgate of their vehicle and taking something out of it and putting it in the bins. They're all in the same space. And in general, we keep that recycle area very clear of debris or anything that could cause any injury to someone. We won't run the forklift or the loader to push down the bins if there's people in that area. So safety is always number one. There is a misnomer about how our recycle center works. The city does not get reimbursement for cans and glass and whatnot. We pay to have Recology come pick that up. There is a residual return to the city that's relatively small. It actually costs us to provide a recycle service to the citizens. And the citizens are paying for that in their trash pickup. And so it's not a money-making operation. In fact, every year we have to work really hard to try to keep that bottom line intact. It's a costly operation. And we're not making in recycle what you would think. Unfortunately, when people come and put their stuff in recycle, they haven't followed the criteria that makes that item recyclable by rinsing out their plastic bottles or their glass bottles. So by the time it gets to Recology, if there's any residue in that, they can't recycle it. It actually goes in the landfill. And they've done a huge campaign trying to get people to understand what they have to do to make something recyclable. So I think the concern is well taken from a safety perspective, but as it relates to cash return to the city, it's zero. So these are locals that sometimes that's their only way to be able to generate income. So we try to balance that. There's one gentleman in particular that all of us know, and he likes to help at the recycle. He'll be sweeping up, he'll be helping in any way he can, like a volunteer. And he is one that collects cans. So we're monitoring that, and we're trying to balance that without taking something away from someone that needs that support. And it's definitely not financially impacting to the city in any form or fashion. So if it became overwhelming, of course, that would be something we would say, we can't allow this. But at this point, it's not. If someone is interfering with our normal process, that's something we would address right away. And I'm not getting calls about that. Andrew hasn't expressed that to me. Our seasonal person that helps every year has not expressed that to me, but I have said that that person's vehicle needs to be parked on the outside and not in our recycle area. So we've set the limits, and we've tried to balance that and be supportive without it being interrupting to our process.
Okay.
Aaron, thank you for saying that the way you said that. I think it's really important that our systems, our community systems, that they operate to be able to help, because we have so few services for people. And if a simple thing like recycling is available and accessible without it interfering or causing any harm, I think that it is the least that we can do.
It's definitely a balance. And Steve, your point's well taken. If the city was dependent upon that from a cash flow perspective, and that it was significant, I could see where there'd be a concern and action would have to be taken. This is very small in the overall scheme of things.
I don't see a lot of dumpster diving. A lot of the locals that live around here, they know when that gentleman's going to be there. He's parked on the outside of the gates, and they'll pull up and they'll give him directly from the back of their trucks into him, and without even touching the recycling center.
Yeah,
So it is.
I've done that myself, but the recycling program, though, on the state level does rely on funds that are not reclaimed by folks that just put it in the recycle and don't take it to the deposit refund center. Isn't that correct? So that money is coming out of the recycle system or funds on a state level, but not the city level. And I know recycling.
And I don't know how the state does it. I'd have to ask Lori. She's much more versed on how it works at a state level, or I could ask the director at Recology. When they've come and visited with us, it's been quite an eye opener for them to talk to us about what's happening at their end. And relative to what ends up in the landfill that we think is being recycled. It's very disheartening. So
I've got masters in recycle.
Yeah.
From the Utah perspective, Oregon
Right.
perspective, but.
This is Doug. I had the same kind of, each time I pulled in there, the same kind of funny feeling in my gut, seeing, individuals, usually the same people, pulling stuff out instead of putting things in. The recycling center is designed for depositing and not removal. But I will say, I think that perception changed a lot, and I don't know when it happened. Like you say, when the activity moved outside the gate, particularly the parking of the truck that's where the collection is going. Is for quite a long time there. You go in and the individuals that were pulling items out had their vehicle inside there, and that was bothersome to me. But now that it's outside the gate, I feel quite a bit better about it. And my other question, it looks like you cleared it up. It's not really creating an issue for our public works staff at the center. They seem to support it. So is that right?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, then, yeah. I think that adjustment on the outside the gate business was a good idea.
Yeah. It's been brought up, and we've discussed it. We've set the criteria, what's acceptable and what's not. And we feel we struck a good balance of being able to support our community folks that may need that, but yet still focus on the city's responsibility from a recycle depot perspective.
Okay, thank you very much for that comprehensive answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for good of the order? I do have one question, Karen. We talked about this inspection of the streets with the drones and everything. You don't have to tell me now, but maybe next month we can have a little recap of what's going on with that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I haven't had time to put any focus on that as of yet. I've tried to let the consultant team work through the focus of the TSP right now, but they are aware that I'm interested in talking to them about that when they get to a point in this project that they can kind of switch some focus for me. But right now, we've just done our eyeball check like we normally do each year. If I can't, get some feedback from them and some potential by the end of this summer, I would say we'll probably consider another route.
We're ready to hit the pavement.
Yeah, because what I'm looking for from them is really a cost, so that as I go into budget, I can say, look, this is worth this cost. I'd like to invest this in being able to do an audit of our streets. If I can get that, great. If not, then it'd definitely be a shift of focus, and we would do a man walk kind of an audit like we've done in the years past.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and one more thing, March 15th, blood drive. Chamber of Commerce, put it in your calendars, tell a friend, March 15th.
March 15th?
Yes,
Okay,
Where's it gonna be?
Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
all right.
Thank you, I'm done.
Thanks, you guys.
All right.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Doug.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
You
I'm
can.
a-
Thank you.
Chair. He's
Awesome.
got the power.
We're done.
Right on.
Thanks, guys, bye.
See, Doug?
All right.
Bye.